we are never one thing always, right? I always say that we will greet ourselves several times over, right? Across our lifespan, right?
Say that again. Say that again for the people.
We will greet ourselves several times over across our lifespans because we are forever evolving, right? And I think that when we're looking to connect and attach and move along our respective lifespans together, we have to both be invested in self-exploration. The moment self-exploration is the moment that you greet yourself again and say, hey, you've changed, you've grown, something's different. Let me learn you a little bit. Right? And then personal development is now, how do I wrap myself in my new self, right? How do I wrap my lifestyle and how I manage things around what I've learned about myself? If two people are doing that alongside one another, I think they do really well, right? But it's the people who are like resistant. I don't need this. I don't need. I think that is what we have to look at in relationships. So I wouldn't necessarily say that therapy has to be a prerequisite as much as whatever mechanisms they have for personal exploration and development are in place.
Something exists.
Something is in place, right? I think that therapy is great. Again, I think all of us benefit from it, but not necessarily all of us need it. And the reason why not all of us need it is because some of us did develop in a conditioning that allowed us to have certain practices that moves us forward, whereas some of us were stifled by trauma and so on and so forth, and we have to go figure some of that stuff out.
And that is where I think a lot of challenges come in relationship. When you have not figured yourself out, then you attach yourself to someone who has not figured themselves out, and then y'all are butting heads trying to figure yourself out, him out, the togetherness out.
And all the while just projecting onto one another.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you're in that situation where maybe you've decided, okay, I'm into self-exploration, I'm into personal development, I've gotten my therapist, I'm doing the work, and then I meet this great guy who is a great guy, but he's not there yet. How do you have the tough conversation around, I think you might be dealing with something that, may end up hindering this relationship?
Ooh,
that's a tough conversation.
Girl, because I be struggling with it too. And I'm the therapist. So, I think courageous conversations are always going to feel like courageous conversations. I think we get held up in the how and the when, right? And then the how and the when just become a reason to avoid it, or delay it.
Waiting for the right time and the right thing to say.
There's never actually a right time, because that would suggest that there's going to be something in you that's going to determine how that person reacts. I always say that people come pre-programmed. Whatever's in them is what's in them. They're going to react to it however it's in them to react to it. And a lot of times we will come out of courageous conversations feeling injured or feeling like we failed something because of how that person reacted. But I would say that, you can be exceptional, but you're not that grand, right? You're not that grand to override someone's conditioning so that they can be whatever you need them to be in that moment, right? So again, they're going to respond according to however they're pre-programmed. So when you go into a courageous conversation, go to deliver, not to receive, right? So go with full intention on what you have to say, right? And knowing that you will have left everything that was on your chest there on the table. Whatever they do with it after that point is what's according to who they are, right?
So is your advice the same with friends? Because we are having all of these, I say we're having these conversations, but I don't really feel like we're having these conversations. I feel like we're posting about mental health. We're posting about it, right?
Come on.
But I don't know that I personally know how to deal with a friend who might be seriously going through something. Like, how do you have those, the same type of conversation, I guess, with a man? How do you, is your answer the same? Like, go to deliver and not necessarily, like, how they take it is not your problem. You just need to make sure you're delivering.
So I think it's a little different with friends, especially like female relationships, right? Because we tend to be a lot more transparent and open, like with our girlfriends.
Girl, you need to go talk to somebody.
But I am more likely to do a lot of exploration, especially because I'm a therapist. So like my friends know, they're like, I'm talking to my girlfriend, not my therapist friend right now, so I try not to be a therapist in every moment, so usually I will say, hey, I'm here. I'm always going to leave the door open. I'm here. What's going on? It's okay. My line all the time is, it's okay not to be okay. I think that is the greatest support you can ever lend to someone. It's okay not to be okay. And I'm going to be not okay right here with you. Right. So I think it's just being present with them and not forcing them, but letting them know, hey, this might work. That might work. What do we want to do? Right. Because I'm in this with you. I'm a resource. I'm a support.
And then the check on your strong friends side of things. If you are the strong friend, is that a thing?
Yeah, so I am the strong friend.
Right.
I imagine you are the strong friend too, right? So I think that I love that we've been talking about checking on the strong friend because it is both parties' responsibility. The thing about being the strong friend, and I've had to confront myself about this too, is that we don't give ourselves a break from being the strong friend, right? Because being strong, we talked earlier about the glorification of strong, right? And it's something that you are labeled with at some point in your life, but then it becomes so much of your
take it
identity, but then eventually becomes a cage because the strong friend doesn't really get to have issues, doesn't really get to have problems, doesn't really get to be vulnerable, doesn't really get to say, hey, I need, or I want, or can you, we don't really feel like we have the liberty or the luxury to be.
Because you're supposed to have it all together.
State. We're supposed to have it all together. We're everybody else's confidant or resource, right? But I think we have to be courageous enough to be vulnerable enough so that people recognize that we have needs too. We really do contribute to each dynamic that we create, right? I always say that there's 3 parties to every relationship. It's the one person, the other person is the dynamic in between. The dynamic has been formed by contributions from both parties, right? So however the dynamic is playing out has some kind of contribution from your end as well, right? So I think the thing that we can always control is what comes from us, what flows from us. So we have to, be courageous enough and take the risk to be vulnerable and recognize people's skill sets. We get slighted because we might try to be vulnerable and then someone's like, oh, I'm sorry. They just don't give you what you give them, right? It's just like, girl, when you were going through what you was going through, I was in the trenches with you. You talking about, oh, I'm sorry. And you feel so let down in those moments. But the thing is that person probably didn't intend to let you down. They just aren't the friend that possesses that skill set.